Well, basically, we've been having conversations ever since this story emerged. We look out for each other, like Democrats across the country, but we actually realized that it was the time, right, the eve of the vote that they wanted to take, and they were interested in going somewhere to break the quorum, which is a legitimate exercise of power. That's not illegal. They can do that. We offered them to come to New York. I hosted them at the governor's residence this morning for breakfast and wanted them to walk the halls of a home that had once housed Franklin Roosevelt as well as Teddy Roosevelt, to draw some inspiration from those fights for democracy that precede us by many, many decades. So we brought them to the Capitol after that, had a chance for me to hear their stories. And I want you to realize they're not just legislators from another state. Think of them as human beings. These are moms and dads who did what they had to do when they were packing their suitcases, not sure when they'd return. They might not be there to buy the back-to-school clothes for their kids. They're willing to make these sacrifices. And I said, these are the 2025 versions of Profiles in Courage, and I'll do anything I can to support them.
This is what the Democrats are not telling you when it comes to the redrawing of districts in Texas. In just the last decade, Texas has become the #1 destination for people fleeing blue states. Nearly 100,000 Californians moved there in 1 year alone. You have Houston, Austin, Dallas. They're absorbing more people than some entire states. And with that kind of migration, the political map can't stay frozen. Districts need to be redrawn, not for power, not for party, but for basic representation. You don't get to flood into a state and expect nothing to shift. That's not how population works. That's not how democracy works. But let's be real about something. Texas wouldn't even need to redraw its districts right now if blue states had just handled their affairs. This is the downstream effect of bad policy and failed governments from blue states. When people flee dysfunction, sometimes they bring their baggage and sometimes they bring their politics too. Redistricting in Texas isn't about suppressing votes or clinging to power. It's about adapting to a population that's exploding thanks to choices made far beyond Texas's borders. The state is reacting to reality. And honestly, you cannot blame them for that. You can't break your own house, move into someone else's, and then demand to rearrange the furniture. Texas is just trying to keep its foundation from cracking under the weight of blue states' failures.
Democratic governors are taking off the gloves in response to Texas Republicans' redistricting plan, but to what end? Might sound good to Democratic voters, but it's actually harder to do than it sounds. And that's because of Democrats' own efforts to make maps more fair. Literally, they created nonpartisan commissions to try to keep politics and politicians out of this process. It's great in theory, but here's the irony. Now it includes states like California.
We're going to fight fire with fire.
And unlike in Texas, the California legislature doesn't have the power to change these maps themselves. And that's true in New York, too. Governor Kathy Hochul is now pushing to go around that process this time, but leave the commission in place going forward.
I'm tired of fighting this fight with my hand tied behind my back.
So the question is, what's the real endgame here? And once both sides let Pandora out of this box, can they ever put her back in?
Well, guess what's happening in California? This is hilarious. In a bold move to safeguard California's political landscape, Governor Gavin Newsom is championing a redistricting initiative aimed at countering the aggressive gerrymandering tactics employed by Texas Republicans. As partisan battles intensify across the nation, Newsom is calling for a special election to redefine congressional boundaries, ensuring fair representation for all Californians. This strategic response not only seeks to uphold democratic integrity, but also positions California as a formidable counterforce in the ongoing struggle for electoral equality.
Big news coming out of Austin, Texas. 51 Democrats have left the state of Texas right now. They are on a plane. You heard that correct. And why is this? They have left the state to prevent this from happening. This gerrymandering of Texas to redistrict and give 5 more seats to Republicans and taking them away from Democrats. We will be hearing from Texas Democrats tonight at 7 o'clock in Illinois, telling us what their plan is. You guys want Democrats to fight? Here they are. They are fighting. More information to come and how you can support them. But this is huge. They will have warrants out for them. This is them breaking quorum to not take up the vote. This is what we want. This is what we want to see Democrats doing, fighting back any way possible. They can be arrested for this. More info to come. Stay tuned. These are state reps. So please take the context of this. They have their own businesses, their own livelihood to be able to have this role. They're putting everything on the line for this. Over 51 of them, which is what we needed, and they are doing it. More info to come.
Tomorrow, some of the Texas Democrats who are currently breaking quorum and fled the state to try and prevent a vote on the state's proposed new congressional maps, well, they're going to be here in California doing a press conference with Governor Gavin Newsom, Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi, Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren, and other California top legislative leaders. 2 congressional sources familiar with the matter have told me that Newsom, Pelosi, Lofgren, and a couple other members of Congress have been the key players right now when it comes to strategizing how California is going to potentially respond to Texas and actually working on draft maps of how California would change its lines in response to Texas. Most of you probably know by now Texas is doing this mid-decade redistricting. Redistricting is short is when states redraw voting district boundaries. Think of it as which communities, cities, towns, neighborhoods, etc. vote for the same member of Congress. It impacts who represents you. But Texas right now, at the direction of President Donald Trump, has proposed to essentially draw out 5 incumbent House Democrats in Congress from office. So that's why we've seen California and Governor Newsom say, you know what, if you're going to play that game, we're going to do it too. And so earlier this week, those same congressional sources told me that California Democrats were almost done with its draft proposal of maps, and their draft would try to either match or one-up Texas by drawing out 5 incumbent Republicans here in California. Might be more. There's only 9 Republican members of Congress in the state of California. Now, none of these maps in California are final, and what Governor Newsom says is the key difference between California and Texas is California voters would ultimately have a say in these maps, whereas in Texas, their state legislature has the sole authority when it comes to redistricting. So if the Texas legislature is able to pass those maps, then it'll be final. Newsom has said that California's response is 100% dependent on Texas. So right now, the only thing that is stopping Texas from passing these maps is the fact that these Texas House Democrats are breaking quorum. And you might have seen that U.S. Senator John Cornyn, a Republican from Texas, asked the FBI to help track down some of these Texas representatives who fled the state. And FBI's Director Kash Patel said that he's happy to help. Some of you watching this might wonder, wait, doesn't California have an independent redistricting process? How would this even work with California lawmakers? I'm happy to do a part 2. I have covered this a lot in my previous videos, so comment any questions you have. And if you're new here, my name is Monica. I cover politics for ABC7 News in the Bay Area. Used to cover Texas politics, covering the legislature there. So again, comment any questions you all have and like and follow for updates.
Indiana could soon become the next major battleground over redistricting as Vice President J.D. Vance met with the state's governor and legislative leaders to discuss ways to strengthen the GOP's House majority ahead of the 2026 midterms. The move follows efforts by Texas Republicans to redraw congressional maps in their favor, a strategy that sparked threats of retaliation from Democratic leaders in blue states like New York and California. And in response, a handful of GOP lawmakers from those states are now calling for a redistricting ceasefire. Congressman Mike Lawler of New York is one of those Republicans, and he joins us now. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So you have largely backed President Trump's agenda, but you have criticized this Texas redistricting plan, which he supports. What about it do you believe crosses the line?
Well, this is an issue that has been going on for decades. Obviously, the gerrymandering of our congressional maps in red states and blue states. And when you look at the fact that last November, only 35 seats were decided by 5 points or less, that tells you everything you need to know about the fact that most seats are not competitive. They are solely won or lost based on the primary. And so, from my vantage point, coming from a district that has 80,000 more Democrats than Republicans, I obviously am very focused on a general election. And I think the reality is our country would be better served and Congress would be better served if more seats were competitive. So, this effort that we have seen, and by the way, it didn't just start with Texas. New York did mid decade redistricting last year. They went to court and forced a new map and took the opportunity to redraw the lines and pick up 3 seats in the process. So, this idea somehow that this just started with Texas is a joke, especially when you look at the fact that we just had a Supreme Court race in Wisconsin that was basically run on the idea that there would be redistricting in Wisconsin. So, this is mutually assured destruction. We're seeing Democrats and Republicans seek to gain advantage through the redistricting process. And from my perspective, it's wrong. And that's why I'm introducing legislation to ban gerrymandering nationwide. This is not how the process should be fought out. We should have competitive districts based on communities of interest, and ultimately the voters, not the politicians, should decide who is in the majority.
And there is the question of, should Congress set national redistricting standards, or does that infringe too much upon states' rights? How do you draw that line? Where do you draw that line?
Unfortunately, what we have seen in states like Illinois, where they redistricted Republicans down to 3 seats, it is not a fair process. And you look at a state like Massachusetts, 9-0 in favor of the Democrats. That is not how this process should be won or lost in terms of control of Congress. It shouldn't be, boiled down to how the map is drawn. It should be won or lost based on the issues, based on the choices presented to the voters. So I fundamentally believe, unfortunately, the states have used the redistricting process as a bludgeon, and both sides are guilty of this. There is no question about that. So, from my vantage point, banning gerrymandering nationwide is something that we should undertake.
How much of your opposition is driven by political self-interest, given that your seat could be at risk if Governor Kathy Hochul moves forward with her threat to retaliate and redraw the map?
I'm not concerned about my individual race. I've won 3 times in 2-to-1 Democratic districts precisely because I know how to present the case to my constituents. There's 80,000 more Democrats in my district than Republicans. If you can't beat me based on the current map, that speaks volumes to your message. But I've been wholly consistent in this fight for years. When I ran for the New York State Assembly back in 2020, I was very outspoken against gerrymandering and what the Democrats were trying to do at the time to weaken the Independent Redistricting Commission in New York. I was executive director of the state Republican Party back in 2013 when we passed through the state legislature a constitutional amendment that then went to the voters and was ratified to create the Independent Redistricting Commission and ban gerrymandering. So I've been wholly consistent in this. I voted against New York's maps in 2022 as a member of the state assembly, long before I decided to run for Congress, because those maps were wrong. They violated the state constitution, and the Court of Appeals upheld that. So this has been my position for a very long time, and I fundamentally believe it's the right one.
New York Republican Congressman Mike Lawler, thanks again for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
The Texas House Dems have officially broken quorum in order to stop Trump's attempted steal of 5 congressional seats in Texas. I literally was driving and had to pull over to talk about this. This comes after the House Calendars Committee met this morning in order to schedule it for a vote tomorrow on the House floor. By breaking quorum, it means that they have literally fled the state. They're on their way to Chicago in order to deny Republicans the ability to call it for a vote because they will not have enough members physically present on the floor. And in their statement and in conversations that have been going on for weeks, they have made it abundantly clear that this is a last-ditch effort, that means that this is all that they have left to do to fight. Which notably, this comes after over 500 Texans came to the Capitol on short notice on Friday to register their opposition to this map. So because House Dems are in the minority, they have nothing else they can do. If they just go and they show up and debate it, it's going to pass because Republicans simply have the vote. They declared that the special session is over, meaning they are going to be gone for the next 2 weeks until time runs out. But what's really important is that this is not going to be easy. Notably, the Republicans are already planning to meet this afternoon in order to take a vote so that they can send DPS and sergeants and everyone out to go find the Dems. Now, we are also living in Trump's America, and that is important because the risks are higher. Dems are already going to be fined each day that they are gone. That means out of their own pockets, they have to pay it. I mentioned Trump's involvement because what's important to know is that Texas law enforcement doesn't have jurisdiction in whichever state that they're going to. However, we don't know how the federal administration is going to respond, but it is safe to assume not well. So what Texas Dems are doing right now is extremely risky. And we don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but for now, they're fighting and they're giving Texans who showed up at the Capitol, who've shown up at every single hearing, who have called and emailed and submitted public comments, something to believe in, and that's important.
I'm John Busey, one of the Texas Democrats breaking quorum to stop Donald Trump from stealing the election. Trump and Governor Abbott are working together to try to rig Texas's congressional maps, manufacturing 5 GOP seats to steal a majority in Congress after the 2026 midterms. I refuse to stand idly by while the president destroys our country, our Constitution, and our democracy. That's why I'm in Chicago. We're here talking to Governor Pritzker about how we can ensure that Texans have the representation that they deserve. Don't let Republicans lie to you. This has nothing to do with fair representation. It's a deliberate and coordinated attack to manufacture 5 congressional seats for the Republicans ahead of the midterm elections. Because when Republicans can't win, they cheat.
California Democrats are looking to pick up 7 new House seats by redrawing their lines. Right, the key thing here is that they're doing this in response to Texas redrawing their lines to give Republicans 5 new seats. And Texas doing this, 1, it's extremely foul, and 2, they have started an arms race because now reportedly 11 states are looking at doing it as well. And I'm just going to tell you this straight. This is all positioning for the end game. Gerrymandering, it's not new, but you do it a year after the census. You don't do it in the middle of the decade to steal seats as the Republicans are trying to do right now. And now Trump, he's saying he wants to have a new mid-century census to take seats away from blue state. Right, and what's next? Texas and California split into several states in order to gain an advantage in the Senate? This is what a cold civil war looks like, and we should take steps to prevent it from going hot. And so option 1 is to uncap the House. The House was arbitrarily locked at 435 in 1929, and up until then, Congress grew with the population. But now, 96 years later, we have over 200 million more people, and the system's breaking. Right, for example, Delaware, they have 1 representative representing over 1 million people, but Rhode Island and Montana each have 2 that represent 500,000. Also, another option is to have federal redistricting, right? Instead of the states redrawing their own lines, a nonpartisan committee draws the lines fairly to make sure that every district is competitive. A move that would effectively eliminate the extremists of both parties. But if every district is all of a sudden a swing district, suddenly everyone's a whole lot more reasonable. And it fails us as a people if our states continue to draw districts to lock out the other party. Look at Salt Lake City. They've partitioned it into 4 congressional districts so that Republicans control all 4 of Utah's seats. And we really do need to fix this because it's starting to look a whole lot like 1860 around here. But hey, for now, follow to stay in the loop.
I have never been more proud to be a Texas Democrat. Our Texas House Democrats have left the state. They are on the plane, on their way. They will be hosting a press conference with Governor J.B. Pritzker in Illinois at 7:15 tonight. And as they've left, Ken Paxton has said that he's calling for their arrest. So let me just remind you what Ramona Mayer, one of our members I have confirmed who is on the plane right now. Let me remind you what he said to Ken.
Give me, Ken. Give me, Ken. So you see me? Look at here. Bye. I'm out, but I'm here for you.
If Donald Trump is doing such a great job, why is he going to every length possible to cheat, to rig the midterms? He knows it will be a bloodbath in the midterms, and he will no longer have any control. His presidency will be done at that point. He will be sitting back playing golf, Sorry, he's already doing that. Number one, sending the FBI after the Democrats that had to break quorum because Republicans are trying to illegally gerrymander the state to win 5 more seats is insanity. They did not break federal law. This is complete and utter overreach. And I hope that the state of Illinois uses every tool possible to fight back against the FBI. If it kicks off a civil war, so be it. I am so sick of this corrupt regime turning shit upside down, inside out, and thinking that the American people stand behind them. Because let me tell you something. I have more bots in my comments for Donald Trump than I do his supporters. I have more bots on every other page leaving comments in support. The majority of Americans do not stand for this bull. Make a donation to the Texas Democrats, go to their page, or donate to the DNC directly. I'm f***ing over it. Have a great day. Goodbye.
Everything you need to know about Texas Democrats breaking the quorum to prevent the Texas gerrymandering. The Texas governor is trying to pick up additional House districts by gerrymandering the state, which means redrawing the districts within Texas to take your representation away. They do this by ensuring that city votes, which are statistically blue, are diluted by the rural votes, which are statistically red, which leads to absurd districts like this. The purpose of representative districts is to have someone who tries to improve your specific community. They live where you are and understand your problems. This map is proposed to be voted on in the Texas legislature, so the Democrats have decided to break quorum by leaving the state. A quorum is the minimum number of representatives who must be present for voting to take place. In Texas, that number is 100. If 51 of the 62 Texas Democrats aren't present for the vote, then the vote cannot take place, which is called breaking quorum. Texas fines anyone not present during the session $500 a day and places a civil warrant for their arrest, but they can only be arrested within Texas. To avoid the vote, they must stay away for the remainder of the special session, which in this case is 15 days. Once the special session is completed, and they return, Abbott can call another special session at any moment to force voting, so the vote cannot be indefinitely stalled and comes at great personal expense. The Texas legislature is not a full-time job. They are only paid $7,200 a year along with per diem during sessions, which they do not receive when breaking quorum. Most members have full-time jobs on the side that they are leaving to try to protect your rights. Abbott is also threatening to bring lawsuits to remove them from the positions, something he isn't actually allowed to do and require a judicial ruling. Why are they still doing this if the vote is still going to happen and still pass? Because in the meantime, judicial rulings can render the vote illegal. It can raise awareness so governors in other states do the gerrymandering in response. It prevents normalization of authoritarianism by going to extremes to highlight what's happening. It is also telling you that people are still willing to fight. It can only be done if we all stand up to the horrors being committed by the authoritarian party. To show solidarity, protest, raise awareness, and vote. Even when you feel like it doesn't matter, Texas is not red, it just doesn't vote. We are in this situation because of the people who do not vote.
Right now, the Democrats are fighting redistricting in Texas and are making a great case, but they're sitting on the wrong side. They're saying that the maps are unfair, that communities are being misrepresented, that voters are being grouped in ways that doesn't reflect reality. Okay, so you're saying the old maps were gerrymandered. Exactly. That's the whole point of redistricting, to redraw the lines so that each district has equal population and that the districts are compact and local, not stretched across the state in some weird, squiggly, disconnected shapes that benefit one side. One Democrat senator even compared his colleagues who fled to Illinois to runaway slaves. What does that even mean? Were slaves skipping work? Because that line makes no sense. But here's what does make sense. Creating districts that reflect the people who actually live there. And now that the lines are being cleaned up, suddenly it's racist? Well, here's the real question. Did you vote for these people? Or did the map decide that for you?
So New York and California are threatening to redistrict. As if those states could get any more blue than they already are. Please, is this the best you can do?
They want to they know they'll lose the elections, but to subvert the will of the people, they're hell-bent on rigging the system. Rigging the system is un-American. They want all's fair in love and war. That's why I'm exploring with our leaders every option to redraw our state congressional lines as soon as possible. Our state legislative leaders, Carol Heastie, Majority Leader Andre Stewart Cousins, they're on board, as are their members. We're already working on a legislative process, reviewing our legal strategies, and we'll do everything in our power to stop this brazen assault.
Some breaking news this morning. The FBI is now involved with locating Texas Democrats who left the state and broke quorum. The quick reminder you probably don't need. Democrats from the Texas House of Representatives left so that a vote on redistricting or new congressional maps could not happen. They don't want it to happen because new congressional maps would give President Trump a leg up in the 2026 midterm elections. U.S. Senator John Cornyn from Texas put in the request with the FBI. He asked them to assist Texas law enforcement in locating these lawmakers and bring them back to the state capitol. He also asked the FBI to investigate whether lawmakers violated bribery laws. In other words, he asked the FBI to see whether or not they illegally used donations to leave the state. That request was approved this morning. As far as Texas Democrats from the State House of Representatives go, we don't know where all of them went to, but several have made public TV appearances, so we do know that some are in Chicago, some are in Boston, and some are in Albany, New York. Now, whether or not they would stay there, they did not disclose. The FBI getting involved with locating the lawmakers and investigating them comes after the investigations that Governor Greg Abbott and Attorney General Ken Paxton already asked for. Attorney General Paxton said that he would seek court rulings to see if he could vacate the seats that belong to these Democratic House representatives. Governor Abbott already asked the Texas Rangers to investigate whether lawmakers violated bribery laws, so this investigation is the exact same one that Senator Cornyn is asking for. Then Governor Abbott asked the Texas Supreme Court for the removal of Representative Jean Wu. Representative Wu is the top Democrat in the Texas House of Representatives. On Monday, the Texas House of Representatives approved warrants for the return of these Democratic lawmakers who left. But until they are back in Texas, these warrants are ineffective. They are protected by being in Chicago, Boston, Albany, wherever they've gone. Once they do come back into Texas, Texas DPS troopers have been instructed to find them. These are the civil arrests you've likely heard about if you have been following this saga. I will say, though, how the FBI's involvement now changes this or affects this, I'm not certain. Democrats have said that they are going to stay out of Texas until August 19th. That is when the special session ends. But Governor Abbott has already vowed to call another special session if redistricting does not happen this time. Let me know if you have any questions.
Oh, Fred, of course, we've got some serious extra white snowflakes melting the down right now because apparently what's good for Texas is absolutely not okay for California, Illinois, or New York. And here's my thing. When the are we going to adopt the slogan, when they can do it, we can do it better? Because we can. Because we're better people. Because we're smarter than them. And because they can't win without cheating. The Republicans, my bad, I'm not going to use that terminology anymore. MAGA, the red mother hats, have taken over the system and are no longer playing by the motherfucking rules across the entire system. So scorched motherfucking earth at this point. If they can do it, we can fucking do it better. Okay? Democrats, independents, and Republicans with working motherfucking brains. We have got to come together and realize that these motherfuckers are never going to play by the rules again. We aren't going to get this mass, all of a sudden, great group of Republicans who are going to start following the motherfucking rules. We aren't doing that under this fucking regime. Okay? So how the do we go scorched earth? How the do we burn the goddamn system down? Because gerrymandering is up in every state and should not be fucking happening. And the Democrats have been trying to get rid of it for a long time. And Republicans, for some other reason, I wonder what that is, won't give it up. Because they know as soon as they do, they will never hold power again. Google's free, mother. And remember, if they can do it, we can do it better.
Gavin Newsom complaining about Republicans allegedly gerrymandering in the state of Texas is a new low even for him. He says the orange man asked for 5 seats and Greg Abbott automatically bends the knee. The 2026 election is being rigged. California won't sit back and watch this happen. Well, Gavin, you've never complained about the Democratic Party doing this same thing, especially in your state, Gavin. Democrats have been quietly redrawing the battlefield and rigging the map in their favor for years. Illinois 2021, Democrats eliminated 2 Republican districts, just wiped them off the map, and redrew the lines to create a 14-3 Democratic edge. They've been doing this type of surgery for a long time. Let's go to New York in 2021. They tried to ram through the map, giving themselves 22 Democratic seats and just 4 Republican ones. Even the court said, nice try, but this is unconstitutional. The judge had to throw the whole thing out. New Mexico 2021. They took one of the most Republican regions, that's right, oil country in New Mexico, and split it into 3 different districts. They diluted every GOP vote across the board, and the result was a clean 3-0 Democratic sweep. That is appalling. Oregon, Nevada, New Jersey, same playbook. Crack GOP voters, pack their districts, but you didn't hear Gavin complaining about this, no. He's too busy on TV doing these little hand signs, blaming Trump for every single thing that happens in California that he allows to happen. And by coincidence, just by coincidence, California ended up with 44 Democratic seats, safe seats, and Republicans with 3. All thanks to Gavin Newsom's neutral redistricting commission. So the reality is that they don't hate gerrymandering. Democrats will rig Maryland, but cry about Florida. They split up Texas Republicans and they call that justice, but carve up Illinois conservatives and say that's fair. Fairness. That's why California is turning red, because they are sick and tired of the bull crap. They really are. $8 gas prices, $9 gas prices, $4,000 for a 1-bedroom. Carton of eggs cost you $11? $1 an egg? The yolk's not even orange, it's yellow. Come on, people. It's tough being a Democrat when everybody is calling you out. I foresee a bleak future for the Democratic Party. They're going to have to build a new one or just get rid of all these Gavin Newsoms.
Oh, Gavin Newsom has said, if y'all are going to cheat, we're going to cheat back. If y'all are going to gerrymander the out of Texas, we're going to gerrymander the out of California. I just hope more blue states follow Gavin Newsom, because this is the energy we need. Stop letting them cheat and just, oh, no, you're not allowed to do that. Cheat back.
You know Democrats left Texas to break quorum, but did you know that 6 of them never left the state, and then 2 of them came back after a day? I highlighted the Democrats that showed up at the Capitol today. Then I realized some of them got too close together, so I tried to underline with blue so you can kind of see. But these are the Democrats that did not break quorum. Okay, now I need you to do something. If you see your representative on that list, I need you to pick up the phone and tell them you're not happy, because they did not break quorum. They are still in the state. They are still here. They showed up today in Austin. They only need 4 more members to have a quorum. I know on that paper it says they had 95 present, but they actually have 96 because somebody didn't check in for some reason, but they were there. It was a Republican. Right now, our Texas voices matter the most, because not only are all of our eyes on Texas, the entire country's eyes are on us. And not only that, the entire world is watching to see what's going to happen. So do not let apathy win while everybody's watching. That would be really embarrassing.
California Democrats are moving very fast to, if you will, beat Texas Republicans at their own game. I'm talking about the gerrymandering battle that has been quickly developing and unfolding over the last couple days, weeks, really. What is time in this news cycle? And today we're getting a better idea of how California's maps, congressional maps, could hypothetically change. All of this dependent on if California voters ultimately approve it. I'll get to all of that in a minute, but first, some context to how we got here. Last month, President Donald Trump outright asked Governor Greg Abbott of Texas to come up with 5 new red-friendly, Republican-friendly congressional seats before the 2026 midterms. This all in anticipation of Republicans losing seats in what's already a really slim majority for them. So Texas Republicans have that draft of the map where it would hypothetically draw out 5 incumbent Democrats, House representatives from their seats. So Governor Gavin Newsom, in essence, has said, all right, Texas, if that's the game you want to play, we're going to do the same, but to benefit our team, in California's case, majority Democrats. 2 congressional sources familiar with these conversations confirmed to us that there are drafts that Democrats in California, both state and federal, are working on that would carve out 5 Republicans from their seats. It includes Congressman Doug LaMalfa, Congressman Kevin Kiley, Congressman David Valadao, Congressman Kevin Calvert, and Congressman Darrell Issa. Cannot emphasize enough, though, this is a draft proposal. None of this is set in stone. What most likely is going to happen is when state lawmakers in California get back from their summer recess on August 18th, that's 2 weeks away, they're going to very quickly have hearings on these maps, finalize the drafts, and then work on this language for how all of this would appear on a ballot and ask voters yes or no. These maps would only be in place until 2030 when we get new U.S. Census data, and then Governor Newsom says in 2030, the redistricting power will go back to the Independent Redistricting Commission. This whole proposal would just be temporary, and it would be triggered based on what happens in Texas. Because a lot of lawmakers in California that we've talked to, Democrats, Republicans, and even Governor Newsom himself, have said that they like California's Independent Redistricting Commission. They realize it was popular with voters. That's why you all approved it in the first place, and they don't want to change that permanently. They just want to respond to what they are saying is a major threat to democracy with the action that Texas is taking. Voters in California, of course, you ultimately will be the judge of that. If you are new here, though, my name is Monica, and I cover politics for ABC 7 News in the Bay Area. I realize a lot of this stuff is inside political baseball, so comment questions that you all have, and I'll make sure to answer them to the best of my ability. But all of this is developing so fast, so definitely make sure to like and follow for updates on this story, and you can check out all of my reporting on abc7news.com.
Texas Democrats have just left the state to break quorum. That means they have a chance of stopping Donald Trump in his attempt to steal 5 congressional seats in the great state of Texas. Let's have their backs. Every day that they're out there, they're charged $500 a day per person. This is going to be tough. This is going to be expensive, but this is the fight of our lives. So please chip in right now to make sure that they have the resources to stay out there, to fight, and to win. Thank you.
All the Democrats in their House left the state of Texas because they don't want to do the redistricting. That's interesting. So civil arrest warrants, $500 a day fines. Okay. What I want to see is them actually arrested.
Hey, bud, your hypocrisy is showing. Your demand to arrest Texas Democrats for their lawful quorum break reeks of hypocrisy, especially while you prop up Trump and Mike Johnson, who are mired in criminal and ethical scandals. The Democrats fled to block a gerrymandering redistricting plan, a legal tactic allowed by the Texas Constitution. That's Article 3, Section 10, just in case you were wondering. Those civil arrest warrants that were issued are unenforceable outside of Texas, and threats of bribery charges or ousting lawmakers like Representative Gene Wu have absolutely no legal basis. Yet you call for jail time over a constitutional protest. Meanwhile, you back Trump, a 34-time convicted felon and adjudicated rapist. Trump's name peppers the Epstein files, yet you stay quiet as his Justice Department dodges transparency. You champion Johnson, who asked a bipartisan vote to release the Epstein files in July, shielding the powerful, while you slam Democrats for a similar delay. You're also fine with Trump's DOJ cozying up to Ghislaine Maxwell, a convicted sex trafficker, dangling relief for her testimony, despite her perjury record. Your selective outrage demanding arrests for legal dissent while excusing felons, rapists, and cover-ups exposes you for the hypocrite you are. If justice matters, start with your allies' crimes, not lawful protests.
Michelle Obama once said, when they go low, we go high. Well, those days are over. And in response to Governor Abbott of Texas trying to steal 5 congressional seats from Democrats by gerrymandering his state, Governor Gavin Newsom has floated the idea of a special statewide election this November of 2025 to ask voters to change congressional maps so that they would be in effect by the midterms of 2026. But he can't just snap his fingers and make that happen because of the way California's Constitution is now written. So that's why we have to have this special statewide election. But he has to act fast to ask the legislature to do this, because it takes about 3 months for California's Secretary of State to manage a special election like this, to put it on the ballot. So that gives Governor Newsom about 2 weeks to make this happen. Governor Newsom, please make this happen. These people have done enough damage to this country, and we could gain 9 Democratic seats in the House if you do this. Spread the word.
Is your member of Congress a piece of shit? Let's find out. Today we're going to be grading the financial integrity of Rep. Nancy Pelosi from California's 11th Congressional District. All right, so Nancy Pelosi's been in office since 1987. She's a major fundraiser for the Democratic Party, with her campaign committee raking in almost $10 million last cycle. 2.5% of that money came from PACs, while 52% of that money came from small donations. That's donations under $200. Well, only a small percentage of funds come from PACs. There are some corporate donors mixed in there, notably Aflac, Comcast, Verizon, Lockheed Martin, and she also receives money from APAC as well. As for individual stocks, Rep. Pelosi's made a few moves since she's been in Congress. Trade volume of $161 million. That's helped her accumulate a net worth of $250 million, and she's beat the market by about 600% with her trading strategy. So, yeah. I was thinking about rewarding the fact that she has a low reliance on PAC money and corporate money and has a decent amount of funding from small donors. However, her stock portfolio is such an outlier and provides such a major conflict of interest that we're giving Nancy Pelosi an F. Tomorrow we're going to be grading a rep from Connecticut, so comment below which rep you want me to look into.
So President Trump has instructed the Department of Commerce to begin a new and accurate census based on facts and figures. A new accurate census that doesn't count illegal immigration or illegal immigrants on that census. So, this is not looking too good for the Democrats, especially for the midterms. A new census that doesn't count illegals. You know how many seats the Democrats might lose? It was also reported today that if you redo the census of California, which has like 50 seats, Democrats have like 50 seats. If you redo it without counting illegals, that said they would lose half their seats. The seats would go from 50 to 27. Damn. You can imagine doing that all across the country? Man, it's going to be, the Democrats, whew. Shit.
They held a press conference last night, a big group of them, about 30, with Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker last night. There were 6 that did a press conference with New York Governor Kathy Hochul on Monday morning. So there's another presser planned for, I think, Warrensville, Illinois tonight.
Okay.
So they are, just like last time, they're doing the media rounds. They're making a big deal about this because it is a big deal, but they're taking it from just a Texas issue to a national issue.
Yeah, well, this redistricting has turned into a national issue. All these other states, the ones you just mentioned, saying they're going to respond, doing their own redistricting, in addition to California, Governor Gavin Newsom saying he's going to do something about it.
New York's governor said today, this is war. We are at war in response to Texas pushing forward with trying to redraw their districts. Right, in Texas, Democrats have left the state, blocking them from passing new gerrymandered districts, or in plain English, they're trying to block them from stealing the election. Because understand, it is not normal for a state to redraw their congressional districts in the middle of the decade in order to try to steal an election. Texas has now issued warrants for the lawmakers. The Texas Democrats posting on social media a graphic that says, "Come and take it," above a cannon from the Alamo. Pritzker will be ignoring the Texan warrants and says he'll not be extraditing them. Also, every day the Texas Dems aren't there, they'll have to pay at least $500, which they'll be paying using donations. Also, J.B. Pritzker, the billionaire governor of Illinois, is reportedly handling the logistics for them. Most of the Texan Dems in Illinois, but some they're also in New York. Greg Abbott currently lacks the authority to remove the Democrats from their seats, with independent observers saying that the Texas Dems might actually succeed in blocking the redistricting so long as they stay out of state until at least December. Right, and all of this playing out as you had a California Republican proposing a bill today to ban all redistricting nationwide until 2030, saying that it's becoming a war. Which, yeah, I mean, it is. If Texas redistricts to eliminate Democrats from the state, then California, New York, Illinois, and Maryland, they're also going to redistrict, eliminating Republicans from their states. And so all of this, it feels like the positioning for the endgame, with Democrats being forced to follow in the steps of Republicans. Though Texas, they could technically still de-escalate and stop from trying to essentially steal an election. Follow to stay in the loop.
Michelle Obama once said, when they go low, we go high. Well, those days are over. And in response to Governor Abbott of Texas trying to steal 5 congressional seats from Democrats by gerrymandering his state, Governor Gavin Newsom has floated the idea of a special statewide election this November of 2025 to ask voters to change congressional maps so that they would be in effect by the midterms of 2026. But he can't just snap his fingers and make that happen because of the way California's constitution is now written. So that's why we have to have this special statewide election. But he has to act fast to ask the legislature to do this, because it takes about 3 months for California's Secretary of State to manage a special election like this, to put it on the ballot. So that gives Governor Newsom about 2 weeks to make this happen. Governor Newsom, please make this happen. These people have done enough damage to this country, and we could gain 9 Democratic seats in the House if you do this. Spread the word.
If you're concerned about the balance of power in Congress in next year's midterm elections, you might want to listen up to this. Midterm elections are notorious for historically being bad for whatever party has the power in Washington, D.C. Right now, of course, that's Republicans with the White House and Congress, but it's a slim majority. In anticipation of losing some of those Republican House seats, President Donald Trump specifically asked Texas to redraw their congressional maps to draw out 5 Democrats and make those seats more friendly for Republicans. Some of you might know this better as gerrymandering, which the courts have ruled is legal. Partisan gerrymandering is okay, but racial gerrymandering violates the Voting Rights Act. And this is all setting the stage for what honestly might be a national gerrymandering battle as Democrats and Republicans try and fight each other for the balance of power in Congress. The leading voice of opposition has been Governor Gavin Newsom in California, but the problem is in California, unlike Texas where lawmakers draw their own maps, California has this independent redistricting commission that's part of the California Constitution. Voters approved of it in a statewide proposition in 2008. Newsom has said he likes the independent redistricting process and thinks that we should have a national system for that, but says it's time for Democrats to stop sitting on the sidelines and playing fair. So a lot of you have been asking me, how will he do that because of the independent commission? Newsom has said that he's looking at a variety of options for how California could legally do that. One of the cleanest ways, he said, would be to ask voters if they want to change the independent redistricting commission, but that would mean California would have to amend its constitution again. That is a whole process. But today he told reporters he's seriously considering having a special election on November 4th, and on the ballot would be proposed new maps that would benefit Democrats in Congress to respond to Texas. In order to do that, he would have to call California lawmakers back to session and ask them to draw new maps and basically do the exact same thing that Texas is doing, but favoring Democrats. If you're new here, my name is Monica. I cover politics for ABC 7 News in the Bay Area, but I previously also covered politics in Texas. So let me know what questions you all have about this story. You also might be wondering why this is even happening, since redistricting typically only happens every 10 years when we get new population data from the U.S. Census. So like and follow for a part 2, or comment any specific questions you all have.
Greg Abbott is lying in Texas. He's crying foul over Democrats breaking quorum, but that's a constitutional check, not a crime. It's literally written in the Texas Constitution as a way to stop the tyrannical overreach by the majority. But Greg Abbott's want to play king. He's threatening arrests and removals, which he has zero legal authority to do. He can't expel members. He can't fill seats. And he damn sure can't suspend a democracy to force through a Trump-backed redistricting scam. Abbott is holding disaster relief hostage to push a rigged map that would steal congressional seats. He already has the power to help flood victims, but instead, he's playing political chicken with people's lives. Greg Abbott and his Republican allies aren't serving Texans. They're serving Trump. They sold out the state to rig the next election, and now they're throwing tantrums because the minority party dared to fight back. And if you let me tell it, I'll say Greg Abbott is full of shit. He's acting like Democrats broke the law by walking out, but quorum breaks are legal, constitutional, and meant to stop the power-hungry bastards like him. He doesn't have the power to arrest, expel, or dictate a damn thing. He's bluffing, bullying, and using flood victims as political pawns to rig an election for his golden orange man, Trump. This isn't leadership, it's fascist fuckery. That's what it is. Texans better wake up, because Abbott's not saving the state, he's selling it out. This is an authoritarianism in real time, and Texans better wake up before their votes and their voices are gone. Truth has no party. Y'all be well.
Hey, it's Congressman Garcia. You're probably hearing a lot about redistricting and gerrymandering, what's happening in Texas right now. So just a quick update. So as we know, Texas right now is trying to gerrymander their state to essentially pick their own new voters and create more districts that Donald Trump and Republicans can win in 2026, basically denying Democrats the ability to win back the House. It's crazy to gerrymander mid-district. They're doing this, of course, in Texas. They're looking at Florida. They're going to start doing this across the country. This is a big way of how Donald Trump is going to try to, in his own way, rig the next election. And so as Democrats, it is hard. And I've been a supporter of independent commissions in the past, including the one here in our own state, that we've got to fight fire with fire. We cannot allow Republicans to play by a different set of rules, and we continue to handicap ourselves and fight with one hand behind our back. And so I'm going to support, and I support the governor's efforts to look at redistricting in our own state. Now, this is a hard conversation. It's going to mean that some of us are going to have our districts change. Mine might change in some ways, which I love my district, so that would be hard. But the idea of people losing their Medicaid, the idea of not being able to check ICE and what's going on with these kidnappings, the idea that we're going to continue giving billionaires more tax breaks is not acceptable and should not be acceptable to any of us. And so as a progressive, as someone that cares about democracy, I'm going to support this process. And so I hope that we in California realize that we are in danger right now and that we've got to support Governor Newsom in these efforts. And so let's see what happens in these weeks ahead. But we've got to oppose what's happening in Texas, Florida, and across the country. Thanks so much.
Gavin Newsom complaining about Republicans allegedly gerrymandering in the state of Texas is a new low even for him. He says the orange man asked for 5 seats and Greg Abbott automatically bends the knee. The 2026 election is being rigged. California won't sit back and watch this happen. Well, Gavin, you've never complained about the Democratic Party doing this same thing, especially in your state, Gavin. Democrats have been quietly redrawing the battlefield and rigging the map in their favor for years. Illinois 2021, Democrats eliminated 2 Republican districts, just wiped them off the map, and redrew the lines to create a 14-3 Democratic edge. They've been doing this type of surgery for a long time. Let's go to New York in 2021. They tried to ram through the map, giving themselves 22 Democratic seats and just 4 Republican ones. Even the court said, nice try, but this is unconstitutional. The judge had to throw the whole thing out. New Mexico 2021. They took one of the most Republican regions, that's right, oil country in New Mexico, and split it into 3 different districts. They diluted every GOP vote across the board, and the result was a clean 3-0 Democratic sweep. That is appalling. Oregon, Nevada, New Jersey, same playbook. Cracked GOP voters, packed their districts, but you didn't hear Gavin complaining about this. No, he's too busy on TV doing these little hand signs, blaming Trump for every single thing that happens in California that he allows to happen. And by coincidence, just by coincidence, California ended up with 44 Democratic seats, safe seats, and Republicans with 3. All thanks to Gavin Newsom's neutral redistricting commission. So the reality is that they don't hate gerrymandering. Democrats will rig Maryland but cry about Florida. They split up Texas Republicans and they call that justice, but carve up Illinois conservatives and say that's fair. Fairness. That's why California is turning red, because they are sick and tired of the bull crap. They really are. $8 gas prices, $9 gas prices, $4,000 for a 1-bedroom. Carton of eggs cost you $11. $1 an egg? The yolk's not even orange, it's yellow. Come on, people. It's tough being a Democrat when everybody is calling you out. I foresee a bleak future for the Democratic Party. They're gonna have to build a new one or just get rid of all these Gavin Newsoms.
So President Trump has instructed the Department of Commerce to begin a new and accurate census based on facts and figures. A new accurate census that doesn't count illegal immigration or illegal immigrants on that census. So it's not looking too good for the Democrats, especially for the midterms. A new census that doesn't count illegals. You know how many seats the Democrats might lose? It was also reported today that if you redo the census of California, which has like 50 seats, Democrats have like 50 seats. If you redo it without counting illegals, that said they would lose half their seats. The seats would go from 50 to 27. Damn. You can imagine doing that all across the country? Man, it's going to be, the Democrats, whew. Shit.
Senator John Cornyn had requested from the Federal Bureau of Investigation and Kash Patel, who's the director of the FBI, to allow the FBI to assist state and local law enforcement in retrieving the Democrats that fled the state of Texas, breaking quorum, because they potentially were in violation of the law. And because of that, when they crossed state lines, it allowed the federal government to intervene and assist state and local law enforcement. Now, at this point in time, those lawmakers have not been charged with any actual crime that would allow them to be removed from the states of Illinois and New York by the federal government and returned to the state of Texas. But once they cross those lines back into the state of Texas, these civil arrest warrants can then be used to then bring those lawmakers back to Capitol Hill. So it's possible that even if they just get brought back and then they are found, to be innocent of any crimes, or their cases get completely thrown out, now they're back in the state of Texas, and now those civil arrest warrants can be used to pick up those lawmakers and bring them back to Capitol Hill to vote on those partisan maps. We also have President Trump, who is floating the idea of doing a mid-decade census, which would require all 50 states to then redistrict before the next election, which would then mean that states like Texas could then go and redistrict and would have a problem doing so, as long as they, don't violate the Voter Rights Act or the Constitution of the United States. But it also means that states like California and New York and Illinois will also then be able to redistrict without problem, and will then be able to also partisanly district their maps, potentially give them additional seats. I'll be sure to keep you guys updated as we continue to learn more about this ongoing battle over the legislative maps for the 2026 election.
Hey everyone, it's your good old buddy, Dr. Matthews. How y'all doing? Happy Monday. I'm here to give an update in regards to the quorum break situation. Today, I was given information in regards to, these were the House members that showed up on the House floor today. And these are the ones that we are definitely are going to primary. These are the most spineless Democrats that I have ever seen. And then the cold thing about it is they are Democrats that are Hispanic. Do you not know that they trying to disenfranchise blacks and Hispanics, you big dummies? So let me let y'all know who the donkey of the week is, who we finna primary. Raymond Pena, District 42. Joe Moody, District 78. Armando Martinez, District 39. Oscar Longoria, District 35. Terry Canales, District 40. And Sergio Munoz, District 36. And when you look at that voting thing, he didn't vote, but he was there. He was on the floor. Let me tell y'all something. we're going to let y'all know fat meat is greasy. And I want all my grassroots, everybody we need to activate, because these 6 suckers, we are going to primary them. Since y'all do not want to fight for the people of Texas, you don't want to fight for minorities, and you a damn minority, and you brought your weak ass to that House floor. So guess what? We're going to replace you. And I'm going to say this to the legislators that did go. Don't you bring your ass back here. Because if you do, you're going to be right in the thick of it with these 6 jokers. Now, did they make quorum? Absolutely not. But I'm going to tell you this. They won't be in that seat because we're going to see to it.
Imagine there's a button in Texas politics that can stop bad laws instantly. Ding! Well, it's been there since 1876, written in plain sight in their Constitution. Both Republicans and Democrats have pressed it, but now Greg Abbott wants to make it a crime. Let's talk about quorum. In Texas, 2/3 of lawmakers in either chamber have to be present to do business. That's called quorum. If enough members refuse to show up, nothing can move forward. No votes, no bills, no gerrymandered maps. It's not a loophole. It's there on purpose. It forces lawmakers to work together instead of steamrolling the minority. In 2003, Democrats left the state to stop a redistricting plan that would have weakened Latino and Black votes. 2009, Republicans broke quorum to block environmental bills they didn't like. In 2021, Democrats walked out again over restrictive voting laws. And you know what? Sometimes they won, sometimes they lost, but every single time it was constitutional. Yes, it was. Just in 2025, Republicans pushed a mid-decade redistricting outside the normal census year, aimed at breaking apart Black districts that had fought for decades to be heard. Democrats left denying quorum. It wasn't just politics. It was about protecting the voice of communities that have always been the first targets when power gets Governor desperate. Abbott didn't negotiate. He didn't compromise. He issued civil arrest warrants for absent lawmakers, threatening to drag them back to chamber by force. The Texas Constitution says lawmakers may be compelled to return, but it doesn't make absence a crime. His demand wasn't just an overreach. It was unconstitutional. When leaders respond to dissent with punishment instead of dialogue, it's not strength, it's fear. And historically, it's how free society starts slipping towards authoritarianism. Silencing political opposition is not the Texas way. It's not the American way. In 1773, colonists dumped tea into Boston Harbor because Britain taxed them without listening. In 1776, they wrote the Declaration of Independence, telling one of the most powerful nations on earth, we will not be ruled without our consent. That bravery, standing up to overwhelming power, is what made them real Americans before the United States even existed. Walking out to protect people's rights isn't running away. It's the modern version of that same courage. Targeting Black districts, stripping them of their voting power, and punishing lawmakers for defending them is racism. Period. It's not about law and order. It's about keeping power by silencing communities that don't vote their way. Our history will remember it as cowardice. Quorum is there for a reason. It's the emergency brake when democracy is about to crash. And if they can punish lawmakers for using it, your voice might be next. Real Americans from the Boston Harbor to the Texas Capitol stand up to bullies, no matter the cost. Share this so the next time someone tells you they're just running away, you could tell them no, they're running towards justice.
They held a press conference last night, a big group of them, about 30, with the Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker last night. There were 6 that did a press conference with New York Governor Kathy Hochul on Monday morning. So there's another presser planned for, I think, Warrensville, Illinois tonight.
Okay.
So they are, just like last time, they're doing the media rounds. They're making a big deal about this because it is a big deal, but they're taking it from just a Texas issue to a national issue.
Yeah, well, this redistricting has turned into a national issue. All these other states, the ones you just mentioned, saying they're going to respond, doing their own redistricting, in addition to California Governor Gavin Newsom saying he's going to do something about it.
So the FBI has confirmed, apparently, that it is going to go after the Texas legislators currently breaking quorum in an active protest against the redistricting that would give Trump 5 more seats. I'm going to show a clip of my conversation with Representative Vicki Goodwin yesterday.
Our state leaders, Governor Abbott and Ken Paxton, are escalating the situation with the words that they use. So I would just ask that while we have political disagreements, we can always do it respectfully. And the quorum break is it is something that is allowed through our Constitution. It's a tool that we have used, but rarely, because it's not easy to get 51 members to agree to break quorum. It takes something really incredibly consequential for us to do that. And we don't take it lightly. And we don't believe that we're not serving our constituents. This is actually something our constituents have asked us to do because they feel so strongly about the redrawing of congressional maps at this time. They don't want that to happen, and they feel like this is the only way that we can stop it. It may not stop it forever, but it does bring a lot of attention to the issue. People might say, well, why do you care so much about the maps? And it's inevitable. Why are you doing what you're doing? But the thing is, it does bring attention, and Trump has asked for this change, this manipulation of our maps, because he is worried about losing seats in the 2026 election cycle. And that's, a manipulation of our system, and it really tears at our democracy. And so it's just that critical.
Well, that is something that I'm working for at the national level, and we have, how can I say, are hoping that we can have gender affirming here for our trans kids, and that it's a sad thing for us. I'm not totally. I don't know what effect we can have nationally with what we have going on in the White House and in the Congress. It's really very sad. If you were there, outside our door, we have a trans flag. Outside of our door in the office, congressional office building, we have the trans flag, as do some of our other colleagues. But that view is not necessarily shared by people on the other side of the aisle.
I think Gavin Newsom is the antithesis to Trump. I saw a TikTok, I hope I reposted it because it was absolutely incredible. And it was a man talking about how if Trump exists, there has to be a swing the exact opposite way in the same diabolical way. So the way that Trump sues everyone, the way that he mocks everyone incessantly, the way that he's mean, unkind, wildly racist, openly bigoted, those things are all going to have to happen on the left opposite. So just completely opposite. And if you have taken a look at Gavin Newsom's social media platforms, the way that he's suing Fox News, the way that he got Fox News to apologize on the air, don't get me wrong, I am not his biggest fan. I think his views on homelessness, yuck, very yuck. I also don't agree with his policing policies. However, I think that he is that level of diabolical, and the right does not think that the left will ever rise to the occasion. Perhaps that they'll never get down and dirty like us. They'll never be as loud and as bigoted. They will. But did my glasses just fall off? That's crazy. They will. Absolutely, the left will rise to the occasion, and it's going to be a wild ride. Honestly, if you're not following Gavin Newsom or his office on social media platforms, give it a look. It's quite the ride.